Thank you for joining us on this program. My name is Victor Mwila. Young people, often described as leaders of tomorrow, are increasingly becoming the leaders, voters, and change makers of today. The youth in Zambia actually make up the largest share of registered voters. In fact, according to the Electoral Commission of Zambia, of the over 8 million registered voters, over 4 million are youth voters of ages between 18 to 34 years, accounting for over 40% of the entire voter register. This also means in every 2 registered voter is a young person. As the nation prepares for the August 13, 2026 general elections, questions remain about how young people are participating in the electoral process, the challenges they face, and what can be done to transform their numerical strength into meaningful civic and political influence. As we reflect on these issues, I am joined by Ruth Kangwa, an African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace in Southern Africa and a human rights and governance lawyer. Ruth, I would like to say thank you so much for coming and accepting the invitation to appear on this program.
Thank you very much for having me. As I always say, for God, for country, we're always willing to step up and to serve, even within our busy schedules.
Everybody knows that nearly half of Zambia's registered voters in the 2026 elections are young people. From your perspective, how significant is this demographic in as far as shaping the outcome of the elections and the future direction of our country?
Mr. Mwila, I see the particular statistics that you've brought out for this year's election. You're ideally having over 4 million registered voters within the age bracket of being youth, 18 to 34. And that is one of the defining characteristics of the 2026 general election. And I say this because for the first time, we are witnessing a new generation coming of age politically. And I say so because we are dealing with a digitally connected generation, a Gen Z generation, an AI generation. And ideally, this is an entire generation that has got the capacity to significantly shape the national conversations, but as well as, like you said, it's not just about the numbers. They've got the capacity to then influence civically and politically the direction of what Zambia's democracy will be like. And I believe that this participation of the young people doesn't only come through the ballot, exercising their vote and their right, ideally, but it will also come with the responsibility for those who've stepped forward to want to take up leadership spaces, be it at parliamentary level, at local government level, but a responsibility that's now coming with this demographic advantage, right? What does it then mean for young people? And I think this is what's really going to just define what our nation-building force will look like in the few years to come.
And time and again, across the length and breadth of this country, we hear young people complain, about, this disconnect that they feel from political and governance processes. What factors do you think are actually contributing to this disconnect, according to the young people, and how can these issues be addressed?
One reality has increasingly become clear. It's not the fact that young people are not, are disconnected from the conversations or the governance structures. It is the fact that many nations, many governance institutions, not in Zambia alone as the government or institutions, they're still learning how to connect with today's young people. I started by defining the characteristics of what kind of generation we have of young people. Digitally connected, an AI generation, but young people who are a click away from the button. Even for those in the rural areas, you'd be surprised that soon the digital divide is closing up. But the question still stands, where are we engaging the Gen Zs? Where are we engaging this generation AI? Are institutions making deliberate means to find young people where they are today? Because this generation is really learning very differently. They are connecting differently. They've got TikTok platforms away from the traditional media platforms that we have, such as this, right? But they consume information digitally. And this then means, as they're asking difficult questions, are institutions meeting up to where the young people are? And the key challenge isn't that young people are not interested in what affects their daily lives. The challenge is whether young people actually feel meaningfully engaged. There's two different aspects at play, Mr. Mwila, is that young people tend to feel there is a lot of tokenistic engagement. I am engaging you, Ruth, simply because you are young, not that you have something of value to bring to the table, value of wisdom, value of knowledge that can help shape the trajectory better for youth development, for example. And there's then the engagement of young people simply because we need to mobilize them because young people are the future generation. And this is where the disconnect lies, in not understanding, ideally, how young people can begin to be trusted with this responsibility. And for me, I see this as an opportunity and a clarion call for institutions, but as well as young people, to find the middle ground where they can meet and to bridge that disconnect, ideally, so that we move together with different generations and we shape what Zambia will be in the next 50 years to come.
You being an African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace, what role do you think young people can, in this period in which we are in, what role do you think they can play in promoting peaceful elections and preventing violence, misinformation, hate speech, and so on and so forth? Historically, we're coming from elections where we've seen quite a good number of young people engaged in violent activities during elections time. What role do you think young people can play to flip that coin and be able to do something that is positive?
In peace building, we've actually got a concept called preventative diplomacy. Ideally, it is the idea that we should be able to identify, to address some of the root causes and address any tensions before they get into active conflict. And outrightly, as you have put it, elections are one of those periods, particularly, especially for Southern Africa, where we've got different kind of defining what war is, right? Where preventative diplomacy becomes very essential. And this is where young people play a critical role. I'll give it in a very practical example. Young people shouldn't only be relegated or see themselves as voters. Young people can actually step up to play the role of even electoral observers, polling station managers, community influencers. But how do we then add in the aspect of ensuring that they are engaging in preventative diplomacy? Because election period time is when emotions are heightened. We also see quite a lot of political competition. But who at the end of the day are on the receiving end of being victims? It is the young people. Who are on the receiving end of being the oppressors? It is the young people. And this is where young people need to get to a point where they realize they have got a central role in the electoral process. The election process is not only the day where we focus on where we vote, right? It also means really looking at the electoral cycle. And this is where, as an AU Youth Ambassador, one lesson that I have been key to learn in my few engagements, new on this role, by the way, I think I'm just 2 months in, is that we need to be very deliberate as the young people who are exposed to go back to those communities to engage young people on how we can sustain the peace. This is not built by governments alone. And what this entails, Mr. Mwila, I'll give an example, is just 2 weeks ago, we were directly on the ground in electoral hotspots in Lusaka, in Chivolia, Kwakanyama, in Chunga, in Mandevu. We were engaging, and we have engaged now over 1,200 young peace ambassadors who are going to be first-time voters. But what we're illustrating to them is, for those who will be eligible to vote, you have got a role. For those who will not be eligible to vote in this particular election, they have got a role to play in terms of responsible citizenship. This doesn't only begin within the community of school, but the community of home. What messages are they taking back home to ensure that they promote peace? Right now, we need young people to show that we are able to be tolerant and accommodate divergent views. But it starts with the illustration and example. You've outrightly put it that increasingly, our generation has got digital citizens. One click of a button can turn a community or a nation into turmoil. We've seen this happen across the world. But what responsible actions should we undertake as young people? And this is why we've embarked on this initiative as young people, to share more information on how we can peacefully participate, to democratically engage, but most importantly, remembering that we have a Zambia to preserve, to protect post 13th August 2026.
Well, viewers, if you are just joining us, you are watching Zambia 2026 General Elections Program, and I am hosting African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace in Southern Africa, Ruth Kangwa, discussing youth participation in the electoral process, particularly this year in August 2026. Ruth, you have emphasized this point. Young people are extremely digitally connected, most of them, and you know, they are present on social media where political information spreads rapidly. How can young people distinguish credible information from misinformation, hate speech, and disinformation, and so that they can become responsible digital citizens during elections, like in the election cycle in which we are?
Yeah. So outrightly, as you have put it, in many cases, information today is reaching young people before the Zanis or ZNBC evening news, before the 19 hours news, right? And this then makes every young person a consumer of information, but also a potential publisher. What am I trying to say in relation to the 2026 13th August election? Today's election campaign is taking place between two battlefields. The first one is that it's the physical campaign trail. And on that physical campaign trail, you have got young people who are foot soldiers with their smartphones. Anything that they see sinister or anything that they feel can, create content, at a click of a button, it can be put up. Even without assessing or putting a message to create context around that. Then you've got the flip side of the coin. The second battlefield, the digital space. By the time that video or the content of whatever has happened in the physical campaign trail is on the internet, you are already finding citizens asking questions, making comments. You are already allowing citizens to have a narrative. But then you're having a digital citizen who hasn't undergone journalism school like you did, who doesn't have digital ethics or digital integrity. What does this then mean in turn? Already, this is what's creating Zambia's digital space to be heated as we speak. And I always say that before young people share any information, before elder citizens forward that message on WhatsApp, there are 4 critical questions that each person must ask. And that is for the purpose of having your own moral digital integrity. What does your integrity, even as Ruth or Mr. Mwila, look like when you're online? Do you receive a newspaper article and at least question, is it true? An article on in the WhatsApp groups, do you verify to ask, is this verified? Is it from a credible source? But most importantly, what does me forwarding this message create? Is it peace or it's just usual kachepa as it is? I'm bringing out these 4 pointers because what we are witnessing today is at the click of a button, at the share of a button, at the reaction of a digital post, people's reputations are at stake, they're being damaged. They can also create panic or to inflame communities. I always think of the grandmothers, Kwaha in Shangombo, or Kaputa, or in Mwense. By the time that the information is reaching them, because their grandchild has just got a smartphone and there's information or an AI-generated video that's been created, and they say there is no election on the 13th of August. We're already creating problems in itself. And my key message around this digital conversation is that technology itself is not the problem. Technology is a tool that we have at our disposal. Whether it strengthens Zambia's democracy or weakens it depends on how we responsibly use it. And ideally for the young people, my clarion call relays on those 4 questions. Before you share something, before you post something, before you react to something, are you misinforming? Are you disinforming with an intent to harm? Or are you also malinforming, knowing that information is true, but choosing to take it out of its context to harm a person or to damage somebody's reputation? I think these are the critical questions we are living with. Our phones should become the instruments of civic education, correct information, rather than the weapons of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. People need to think very critically before they click.
Well, beyond voting, what practical opportunities exist for young people, really, even as far as leadership is concerned in this country?
One of the greatest misconceptions around democracy is that participation revolves around an electoral cycle. And once the results are announced, President ABCD is announced the winner or re-elected, people think it ends at that. But in reality, elections only signal one part of the democratic journey. And this is where young people can really participate at every stage of the electoral cycle. I had stated that even if a young person, let's take it before the election. Young people right now, I'm very happy, they've been stepping up to be the voter education facilitators, the VEFs, under the Electoral Commission. That already is one role that they play. We're seeing a lot more organizations organizing digitally through webinars to have conversations. You're seeing organizations such as Girls Gone Political, the Student Union, the National Council of Student Unions, going across the country, even the ZANASUs, to engage their fellow citizens within tertiary education, to see how they can civically participate, but what is in it for them by the government. The second part of it is that during the election, young people have the opportunity, especially for this election, to be accredited election monitors. The observers, like I stated, polling assistants where applicable. But after all is said and done, young people shouldn't stop at that. They need to find means to continually engage these members of parliament that we're going to see in the August House after 2026 election. They need to engage the councillors. They need to engage the local authorities where service delivery must and will take place. But it can't take place in a vacuum without the participation of young people.
Well, Ruth, perhaps as we are concluding, in your closing remarks, I would like you to reflect on this. Beyond August 13, 2026, what would, in your view, what would meaningful youth participation in governance look like, and what steps should young Zambians take now to prepare themselves for leadership and public service?
The first step is recognizing that youth participation is not seasonal, and that youth participation is now transitioning into becoming institutional. And I say so because for many years, young people have been relegated to the background or to the back of campaigns and chanting slogans. But what has taken precedent now, 61 years later, for Zambia, is the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Act number 13 of 2025. It has created a very important foundation now where Zambia's electoral system has got guaranteed representation for young people. 15 guaranteed seats for youth, 20 for women, 5 for persons with disabilities. What then has also been created out of that is the Electoral Process Act of 2026. The foundation has been set, but now the Electoral Process Act will operationalize how young people, formally through institutions, can engage in shaping our nation. And we are going to see proportional representation reflective at national level, but as well as local level. And now the responsibility shifts to institutions and the young people. Remember the question you asked, where is the disconnect? So the key issue now is political parties should identify to mentor young people to ensure that they're able to occupy these institutionalized roles. For the young people, it won't be everyone that will go to parliament. It won't be everyone that will go to the local authority. Young people need to find themselves continually giving institutions and the government advisory, providing in their input when the budget 2027 will be presented. But most importantly, we need to find means where young people are selected because of their competence, their integrity, and the value that they bring to the table. So the onus is on the young people to meet opportunity and be prepared for it, but the key onus is also on institutions. Are you meeting young people where they are? Are governments, not only the Ministry of Youth, meeting young people where they are? But is the state being deliberate about having young people at the table so that we can intergenerationally coexist?
Well, Ruth, I would like to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and appear and just share these insights with us on this program.
Thank you very much for having me.
We look forward to hosting you once again as we are heading towards August 13, 2026. There's more to talk about.
Indeed.
And we need to keep on communicating.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. Well, viewers, as we close this program, it is important to note that participation of young people in elections goes far beyond casting a ballot. It includes promoting peace, demanding accountability, engaging in civic affairs, and contributing to national development long after the elections are even over. Until next time, stay informed, participate responsibly, and continue contributing to a peaceful and democratic Zambia. It's bye for now.